Hey mama, come in, grab a drink. Oh my God, what a week. We are back to school. I swear the school holidays always start off for me as a place of just being relaxing and we can finally drop the routine and not worrying about lunches and all that kind of stuff. And then when it gets to the end of the school holidays, I'm always desperate for routine and desperate for structure because as much as my ADHD brain loves change and loves just to not be told what to do and not to have my life dictated by what needs to happen, I desperately need routine and structure. And actually, that is the bit that's missing from my life most of the time, which is what causes me so much chaos most of the time. So, as much as I miss having my big girl at home, today is the first day that I've had a chance to have a little bit of a break, a little bit of a moment on my own. So today being the first day that I've had a chance to have some time to myself, my temptation is to get in and clean this place up. Really just get to the bottom of the laundry, use my time to get on top of tasks that I've been needing to do for such a long time. That is my temptation. However, instead, I thought I would sit down with you and give us a little reminder to chill the fuck out because actually we can't be using our remaining energy after the school holidays. Like I said, if you're a school-aged mum, you'll know we have very little bits left at the moment and we can't be using the remainder of those batteries on chores. No, not around here. So I thought I'd make an episode today as a little reminder of why it's really important for you to rest actually. And, give me a few minutes and I'll be convincing you to take a break and do you and spend some time on the things that you love to do instead of constantly prioritizing your home and chores around the house. I want to talk to you because I can see that you are pouring from an empty cup. Despite what we've been talking about nonstop, you're still trying to be everything to everyone. You're still trying to be on top of everything. You're still trying to be the perfect mum. I can see it. I can feel it. But I want to be clear on one thing, and that is that if you don't take a break and if you're not rested and if you're not filling your cup, you are no good to anyone. Don't you hate that expression? If you don't take a break, you are no good to anyone. When I hear people say that, all I hear is, oh, you better take a break so you can now be useful to others. So in other words, rest so that you can fulfill your function. I hate that expression so much. Not rest because you need it or rest because you, God forbid, deserve it. Actually, you deserve to have a good life. You deserve to have a calm nervous system, whether you're a mum or not. But for the sake of speaking to mums, and I know you're all thinking the way that I think as well, a lot of us only cater to our own needs when somebody reminds us of the positive impact it also has on our children. So if that's all I've got at the moment, if you're not hearing me unless I tell you, you're no good to anyone unless you take a break, I'll take what I can get. At the end of the day, I need you to understand the importance of taking a break. So let's talk about why we're opting out of rest in the first place, because clearly we all know we should be, but for some reason we are choosing the path of most resistance and going into life just depleted and trying to get on top of chores and get on top of everything that has to get done. So I can talk for myself and I know you're exactly the same. There are some deep beliefs that we have about what it means to be a good mum. When my home is untidy, I feel like the biggest piece of shit mum because I believe obviously my kids deserve love, and something about an untidy home to me is kind of translated into less love because love includes a safe and healthy environment. I sometimes spiral from seeing a bunch of crumbs on the floor just after breakfast has been eaten, mind you, because sometimes I'm like, how could I let my kids live like this? How could I bring children into the world and let them live amongst filth? When I pull a crumpled uniform out of the wash pile that has yet to be folded in a hurry getting my daughter ready for school, if I was organized enough to think ahead to hang the uniform out and not pull it out of a wrinkly laundry pile so that my daughter would have a less crushed uniform when she goes to school. Not that she cares, but I care. I feel like such an inconsiderate, thoughtless mum that hasn't even put the time aside to be organized for my kids. We also have so many beliefs about what it means to be a woman in this life, what it means to be a mother in this life. And as much as I can logically fight it, I can logically fight these beliefs around, well, I'm one of a few people that live in this home. How are these tasks all my responsibility? We are still at a point in history where a scruffy kid is a reflection of a bad mum. I feel like we're still at a point in history where a disorganized home is the reflection of a mother. When people come to your house and everything's in order, the assumption is that a woman is on top of things and has things in order. Just like if someone comes to your house and everything's a mess, equally people are imagining that a woman is disorganized and not on top of things. It's not like there was a man living in the household. People will come to a messy house and be like, gee, he's really slacked off. He didn't do all the vacuuming and mopping that he should have done. That we're still at this point in history. So there's a lot of, as you know, like I said, as much as I'd love to logically fight it, there are a lot of really deeply ingrained beliefs that make us feel badly about ourselves when our home, when our environment, when our kids are not squeaky clean and we're not on top of everything. My home is not just my responsibility, obviously, but for some reason there's like a disconnect between how I feel responsible over my home as a woman and how I feel responsible over my home as a mother. Because as a woman, I feel like, well, you know, there are multiple of us living here. My husband and I are the two adults in this home, and I feel like we should be, as two adults, equally responsible for our environment. However, as a mother, that takes things for me to a different level, because it's like my children will be impacted if no one does anything about this. And how could I let that be the case? Which means that I will default to taking things on if they're not done. If you haven't yet, go and listen to episode 68 where I interviewed my daughter and we spoke all about mum guilt. And it was really interesting. She was kind of clueless about some of the guilt. I mean, she's 6, but it was very cute. She was a bit unaware of some of the guilt that mums experience over lots of things. But if anything, it really served as a nice reminder that the guilt we feel over the home especially is something that kids are just uninterested, unaware, and not across. So if anything, I think it's nice to listen to it and just be reminded that actually we're doing a lot of this to ourselves. The other huge reason I don't rest is that the mess around me affects me too. Massively, like massively. When I see stuff everywhere, I feel 10 times more distracted. I feel 10 times more overstimulated. I can't focus. And just visually, the clutter affects me and it takes away from my calm. I am at home most of the time these days, and being surrounded by very obvious jobs that need doing all the time really impact me. I see the fridge needs cleaning at least 3-4 times a day. Every time I open the fridge to sort out breakfast, to have lunch, I see that it needs cleaning. So not only does the visual mess with me because I'm seeing this thing that's untidy and unpleasant to look at, but the reminder that there's a job that needs doing messes with me as well. And at the end of the day, I am also impacted by the jobs that haven't been done. For example, if I'm getting my kids ready for the day and I haven't taken the time to go through my son's clothes, put aside the stuff that no longer fits him, getting him ready for the day is just a longer task for me. So I am making my life harder by not being on top of these things. Not that these jobs are solely my responsibility, but at the end of the day, when they're not done, I do feel affected by them. I do get the impact of them not being completed. The flow-on effect from any job that's just not done means that I have to work harder. So it's very hard to sit amongst it and not think down the track, it's going to be you who's going to have to do it. It's going to be you who's going to have to work 10 times harder to get through it. And so you're a failure for not being on top of it. And I know you feel me when I say this. I just constantly feel like we can never get ahead. I constantly feel like we are always just below baseline of what's comfortable, right? Just below being just organized enough to get past, or sometimes way below. Like, let's be honest, sometimes way below that point. But I'm saying I can never get to baseline. There is never a time where all the bins are empty, the dishwasher's empty, the laundry is, I'm on top of everything. No sheets need to be changed on the beds. There is never a time where we have hit just baseline. Just baseline. The aftermath of what a spring clean would feel like. Love to do a spring clean. With 2 little kids, it's a dream concept for me right now. I feel like I'm constantly cleaning and my house is constantly a mess and it just never ends. And when I'm talking about all these tasks, obviously I'm talking about the home, right? But little things like my daughter the other day, this was so frustrating for me. Before school broke out for school holidays, I was told by the school that she needed an updated allergy plan. So I was on top of it. I got organized. I called the GP that afternoon. I was like, hey, quick over the phone, can you please update her plan, email it to me, and then I'll send it off to the school. And I did it within the day. And then unfortunately, the school called me and said, sorry, thank you for sending it through so quickly, but we need it in color. I don't have a printer. The GP doesn't have a color printer. So I had to go and get a printed copy, take it to the GP, then take it back to the school. And guess when I gave it back to the school. Guess when I actually organized myself enough to get it in was the day my daughter went back to school term 2. In other words, I had the whole of the school holidays to do it. And because I was on top of it once, I was like, I can close that chapter in my head. That's sorted. And now I've gone to and left it to the last minute. So on the last day of school holidays, I was running around like a crazy chook. The effort that it takes to complete something like that, driving around here, get it printed, go to the cheapie, take it to the school, all that kind of stuff feels like you've ticked off an invisible thing on your to-do list. And so it's exhausting. Story of my life. I just feel like never on top of things. And when I do spend a lot of time on one thing, it's a very minuscule thing that I needed to get done that was important, but obviously had very little impact on me feeling on top of things. There's no wonder really why we don't take time to take a break, take a rest, do self-care, work on our goals, work on our own thing, because it just feels like it's not just about if you don't take a break, you're no good to anyone, because these things that we're not doing while we take a break, it feels worse to have to deal with them after the fact. It feels worse to drop the ball, as I always say, and imagine the aftermath of dropping the ball. Sleep when the baby sleeps. I am 150% behind that sentiment. And if you hate it, I beg you to listen carefully, because sleep when the baby sleeps is essential. And when people have a problem with that notion, it is purely because we have such deeply ingrained ideas about what mums should be responsible for. A woman in her fourth trimester, and I talk about this all the time, a woman in her fourth trimester should be responsible for recovering, resting, and nurturing the baby, and not alone either. So sleeping when the baby sleeps is a given, except we all hate hearing it because we are mortified of the idea that the tasks that don't get done while we're sleeping, because in the world that we live in with no village, no one is doing those tasks while we're sleeping, are just going to be something that continue to not get done and then kills any chance we have of feeling on top of things. If you're watching this on YouTube, I beg you to go back and watch some of my earlier episodes, because there are some where I literally cry over not being able to get on top of the laundry. And I've got, my son's in a carrier, he's sleeping, and I am devastated over the fact that I cannot get on top of the house, and it just all feels too much. And I should have been sleeping. Definitely should have been sleeping during that time. No one else was being affected by not being able to get on top of things. Nobody's life was even mildly impacted by the fact that I wasn't able to feel like I was on top of anything while I was here with a toddler and a baby struggling to get on top of things that are really not important, because they're not important. And at the end of the day, I was the only one that suffered. We all know deep down inside that sleep when the baby sleeps is essential. Sleep is life preserving. Rest is life preserving. As in, without it, we cannot continue to live. Right? So we all know it's important. I'm not giving you any new information, but the problem is that we just don't know how to break away from how tied we feel to chores and how much of a failure we feel because we're not on top of things in life. But the truth is, and listen carefully when I say this, you will never be on top of it all. That is maybe a tough pill to swallow, but it's the truth. I said it. You will never be on top of it all. Understanding that truth to your core actually takes so much pressure off your shoulders. No single person, especially with children, will ever be able to be on top of things. I mean, no single person can be on top of things because there's just too much to be on top of. And when it's not stuff that has to get done, we add to that list. We think about things that are not essential, like having your bookshelf organized in book categories. Not an important task whatsoever. And even if you're a single person and you love books, that is something you will add to your list of things to do. My mum would love this one, having your photo albums printed, like everything printed and photo albums in order. Absolutely not an important life task, but something that you will add to your list of things to do and possibly stress over in life. No single person will be on top of everything. Add children into the mix. It's impossible. And if you can just take a second to just ingrain that into the neurons in your head, you will understand then why it's so important to take a break. Because you are chasing something impossible. You can find a million hacks to get your life in order. You can try, like I do, every New Year's resolution to be like, this year, my goal is to get systems in place so that I can be on top of everything and my life runs smoothly. Da, da, da. By the 5th of January, we're back here again. Nothing has changed. Now, you might think, yeah, well, that's got a lot more to do with you, Lorena, than the fact that systems don't work. But at the end of the day, show me someone whose systems work. Bring me somebody whose systems work completely, foolproof, who has children, and who is entirely on top of things in life in general because they have systems that work. I could improve. I'm not like, please don't get me wrong. I haven't hit a wall here and I cannot do better. I could definitely improve. But all I'm saying is there is no way that you can show me a life full of systems that allows you to be fully on top of everything all the time. There might be times when the load is lighter. When, for example, I've had a day where I'm at the bottom of the laundry. I keep talking about laundry. I'm so sick of hearing myself talking about it. So you must be bored to tears. But I think it's one of my top 3 most hated tasks. And so I talk about it all the time. That and emptying the dishwasher and cooking. Oh, I also hate cleaning bathrooms. I hate lots of chores that relate to the house. When you do have that sense of, feeling like you're on top of things to a degree, dinner is prepped for the week. That's never happened in my life. The house is clean. You're on top of the laundry. You've actually watered your plants. My poor plants are dying right now. That's so temporary. I hate to be a bubble burster, but that is so temporary. And so if you put all your eggs in that basket, if you put all your hope and your excitement over the fact that I'm on top of things, it just very quickly comes crashing down. If you can think of somebody who personally is on top of everything, right? In their home, in their life, their fitness, their health, their hair is done, or they're well manicured, or that according to them, they feel well dressed. They feel like they've put the right time and energy into their health. They're eating, their house is beautiful, all that kind of stuff. Car is clean, kids are spotless, on top of all the paperwork from the school and everything like that. I will show you someone who has either much more help than you do, or much more time than you do, or has compromised something that maybe you haven't. That's it. That's the whole thing I always talk about highlight reels is you don't see those bits. You don't see the bits that are left off the radar so that these bits can look good. There is always a trade-off. There is, without a doubt, there is always a trade-off. And I think when that can be cemented in your mind, firstly, you start to look at highlight reels as just highlight reels. You can appreciate them, you can admire them, and you can know that somewhere in the background, there has been a trade-off for that person to be able to look and appear the way that they do in this moment in time. The person who, for example, has all of their photo albums, sorry, Mum, I know the photo albums has been a bit of a sore spot because my mum has dreamt about having photo albums up to date, and she spent many years, frustrated by it, and we finally got there, which is a very exciting achievement. I, on the other hand, wouldn't know where half my photos are. I think some of them are in some old laptop somewhere that probably will never switch on, which is very unfortunate. But for this example, let's think about a person who has all their photos up to date, all their photo albums up to date, a weekly menu plan, everything is super organized, they've got immaculate hair. They might be in desperate need of their entire wardrobe to be culled and made over and all that kind of stuff. You just don't know that. Their car may not have been cleaned for months. You just don't know that. You might visit a friend whose house is spotless and they've recently done a big clothing donation and all their kids' clothes are with their current sizes and nothing more in the wardrobe and their toys are all in working order. She seems like she's got everything together. You don't know when the last time is she did a workout or the last time that she did anything for her mental health. There is always a trade-off. There is always a trade-off. And these are silly examples that I'm giving, but the fact is we all have limited time. We all have limited time. I think for a big part of it, it's knowing what you should prioritize that brings you the most benefit in life, because there's no way to be across everything. That's what ends up happening when we see the disheveled mum, right? Especially postpartum, is we see someone who's gone from taking care of herself and putting time and effort into her health, who suddenly now hasn't learned how to make that a priority. And that's not blaming at all, because I was exactly the same. And I know so many mums who are exactly the same, who never learned how to make that a priority, so that, they did it because they had the time to. And now they have a baby who takes up so much of their time. Obviously, babies need you. You are responsible for them. But because we didn't learn to make those things a priority before having a baby, those things have now fallen off the radar. And that is a very sad reality for so many mums, that her health, her physical and mental health, are lower in priority than getting to the bottom of the laundry. I have cried more about the laundry than putting effort into my mental health. That's very telling, isn't it? I have cried more about being frustrated about the fact that I cannot get on top of things than the fact that my flexibility is just not where it should be. I could be so much more flexible and so much stronger. I should be crying about those things. I should be crying about the fact that I struggle to touch my toes, not about the fact that I have seen the same pile of unfolded clothes on the sofa for the last 3 days. That's just my priorities are out of whack. Nobody has the ability to have everything in place perfectly, all on their own, and we are honestly delusional if we think that that is true. We are delusional if we think it's possible to fully be on top of things. So at some point, once we can accept that information, at some point we have to stop trying. Sorry to say it, but at some point we have to stop trying to be on top of things because that delusion is costing us a lot of time that we could be spending enjoying our lives. Really. Dropping the ball on purpose is something you're never going to not hear me talk about because I believe it to my core. Once I realized that this was such an essential skill, especially as a mum, it changed a lot of things for me. If you can understand that you will never be on top of everything, it sounds negative when I say it, but it's very freeing when you understand that, right? If you can understand that you'll never be on top of everything, you're free from the pressure of having to be on top of everything. So you get to choose whether you let that inability to be perfect, that inability to be on top of everything, chase you while you try to be perfect and try to be on top of everything, because you're not going to be. You can be running and running and running and running, and you're never going to cross the finish line. You can choose for that reality to chase you and constantly stress you out, or you can choose to take control of the fact that you're never going to be on top of everything, you're never going to be perfect, and then drop the ball at a time and a place that suits you in a way that works for you. I think that makes so much more sense than trying to achieve something unachievable and constantly being stressed and frustrated by it. I woke up today knowing full well that I was not going to do a single chore. I made my bed and I fed my children and I got them ready for the day and all that kind of stuff. But in terms of chores, I even said to my husband yesterday, tomorrow is my first day child-free in 3 weeks. It's the first moment, aside from a little 20-minute walk that I went on, it's the first moment I've had in the last 3 weeks where I can be alone and I can focus on my things. So I'm just letting you know, not that I have to let him know, but just so you're aware, I have no intention of doing any chores. None whatsoever. My entire day plan is about working on my own goals, recording this episode today, doing my creative stuff, not if I've got time, not once I've done everything else, but my entire plan. And if I get everything that I need to do done for my own goals, everything finished for me, then the remainder of my time is going to be spent also on me, on other things that I need doing, because I'm in desperate need to just chill and recharge my batteries. That is just so much more empowering than trying to do it all and failing, because I would have failed anyway. There's a limit to the number of hours in my day. When my kids get home from school, that starts to add chaos and pressure and all this. I mean, my son's 3, like he will literally come home and start pulling things out immediately. Then there's food to be prepared and all that kind of stuff, trying to get to the end of the day, doing everything that needs to get done and squeezing in some time for my goals when it just would not have been possible, not possible in the first place. So at the end of the day, I've just chosen today, I'm dropping the ball big time. I woke up knowing that I was going to drop the ball. I woke up knowing that I was not going to get on top of everything. And that is so much more liberating than waking up hoping that you will, when we all know deep down inside it's not possible. Just so much more liberating. Aside from dropping the ball on purpose, I want you to listen to this bit really carefully because this is really important, and I've realized this lately. There are studies to back up what I'm saying, so you're welcome to go and look them up. Self-care and doing stuff for yourself that fills your cup actually makes everything else easier to tolerate. So I am much more able to look around this environment and see you can't see, but there's a huge pile of laundry over there. My kitchen's a bomb. My laundry is backed up. There's things that need to get done around here. The fact that I'm spending time doing stuff for me, working on my goals, actually makes those things more tolerable. I can handle the inevitable mess so much more. And like I said, I have a 3-year-old and a 6-year-old. They make mess. If I stop to rest, there's even more mess and there's no escaping it. If I stop to work on my own goals, the mess that was there is not getting cleaned up because they're 3 and 6. But the magic is that because I'm spending my time on those things, because I'm filling my cup with self-care, with self-love, with working on my own things, I can gladly step over a bunch of toys. It really is magic. And you don't realize it until you do it and are intentional about doing it. Dropping the ball, focusing on yourself, filling your own cup, working on your things, resting, recovering, taking the time to do stuff for yourself. Everything that at one point felt like was strangling you suddenly no longer does. Suddenly no longer feels like the worst thing in the world. When you take the time to regulate your nervous system, to get excited about something that brings you joy, like a creative pursuit, or just veg out and chill and just drop the pulse. Really regulate, rest, do something for you, get outside, get sun in your eyes, move your body, do something that is actually for you. The things that your body was interpreting as a threat, like the chaotic home that you can never get on top of and your stress levels just keep rising and rising, no longer have the same impact on you because you're regulated. That is a recipe that I want you to follow. We keep trying to deal with things the wrong way round. We try to deal with the thing that is stressing us out and hope that by dealing with it, our stress levels will reduce. But because we can never fully deal with it, our stress levels keep increasing. Instead of working on our calm so that we can look at that stressful situation in a different way, we try to tackle the stressful situation. And as I hope we all understand right now, we can never get on top of it. It is back to front and it's costing us so much peace. It ends up being the same mess, but an entirely different internal chaos. And guess who that's good for? It's good for you. Number one, it's good for your kids, your marriage, your relationships. It has a very positive flow on effect when your internal situation is a lot calmer. When your cup is full, it has such a different effect on you and the people around you. So taking the time to rest and to recover and to take a break and to do you literally increases your capacity to live in your life. That to me is the biggest mum hack I could ever give you. When I lost my job last year, I was so anxious constantly. And then not long after, I decided, I think you all know the story by now, I decided to just lean in and fully go hard at my creative pursuits, my creative goals. I decided for the first time to prioritize it, as in not work on those things if I have spare time, but actually make them a priority for me. Treat them like my job. Treat my creative pursuits, the podcast and my YouTube channel, as my job. When I'm on a roll with something, when I'm working on something interesting, when I have some great ideas and I'm putting them into action, everything else just becomes something I can just shrug off. Like I can step over toys and be like, "Oh, we'll get to that. Like we'll deal with that later." When I'm in full creative mode, my brain doesn't see the fact that I have to cook dinner as a threat anymore. It doesn't see the fact that I've got a mountain of laundry as this thing that I need to pursue and I need to chase and it's just causing me all this stress. It just sees it as something else that has to get done. And I find ways to make it fun and interesting anyway. I have a very different experience of my own life when my batteries are charged, when my cup is full. And so at this point, it's just plain logic to me. You cannot and will not ever get on top of everything. Like I said, you might temporarily get close. You might have a day where you're like, oh, laundry, shopping's all done, sheets have all been changed, dinner is cooking on the stove. I feel like I'm on top of things. I'm all up to date with my medical appointments. I've been to the gym. That's a moment and it's temporary. But the logic is you cannot and will not stay on top of everything. Since that's the case, your best bet is working on how you cope with that. Since rewiring your stress levels is the only alternative to getting on top of everything when it comes to feeling like you're coping, and since self-care, self-love, filling your cup, rest, and working on you and your interests is the best way to reduce your stress levels, you really have no other choice but to take a fucking break. That's it. It's the most simple equation I can think of. You not only deserve it, but it really will make all the other bits of your life so much more manageable and overall increase your happiness by 87.5%. That's just facts. Didn't make that figure up at all. Just facts. So, Mama, here, take some leftovers, go get some rest, put your feet up, or go and work on something that you love. I love you to pieces, and I cannot wait to see you next week. Bye.